Hello, everyone. I am sitting here with the amazing Kerri Hummingbird. We just had a wonderful conversation before I hit record. And I thought, well, I should go ahead and hit record. We need to capture some of this. So Kerri and I met as part of something our mutual friend of ours, Carl Forehand, was doing. And there was I think it was a little panel thing he hosted, and you and I started talking, and I started listening to kind of what you were saying. And I felt like there was some really great stuff that you had to share that I wanted to be able to share with other people. So, and then you were saying before we record too, like there's a huge milestone. Go on and tell us some huge milestone that's happening in your life at this very moment that you're
Yeah.
talking about.
Thank you so much for the invitation to come and share here and have conversation and provoke some ideas and some curiosity. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I'm really excited because tomorrow is the launch. The 727 is 3 years that my book, The Second Wave, Transcending the Human Drama, has been on the international charts in on Amazon. So it's been a bestseller
Yeah.
continuously. I track it every single week for 3 years.
That's
So
amazing.
it's like so exciting. And this is a book I channeled from Ascended Master White Eagle.
Mhm.
So as we start to branch out of the idea that there's only Jesus,
Yeah.
we find out that there's other master teachers like Buddha, like
Mhm.
Kuan Yin, and Mary Magdalene, and Mother Mary, and like a whole host of other teachers, including White Eagle. And White Eagle is here to teach about indigenous wisdom and how we connect with Mother Earth. And so that's my angle, and that's my guide, as along with White Buffalo Calf Woman, who is another guide of the indigenous people on the continent of North America, specifically the Lakota people.
Yeah.
And she came to me, and I was surprised because I'm not Lakota, but she came to me and she said, "You're going to write this other book called Love is Fierce: Healing the Mother Wound." And I said, "Okay, sure." And then that turned into a 3 year process of embodied healing for the collective, because I am, maybe this is foreign language to some of your audience, just getting started into the foray of figuring out who you are.
Right.
But there's a great tool right now called Human Design that can help you understand some of your life curriculum. It's many people offer free human design charts, and there's some great wisdom out there about it. And then a derivative of that is the Gene Keys, the Gene Genekeys from Richard Rudd. Anyway, the human design chart reveals that my life's work is a right angle cross of service. So
Hmm.
my whole job here is to be in service to the collective. And if you look at my astrology, I have my private astrologer who's helping me understand like what is going on in this lifetime. And she's like, "Oh, you're here for the collective. You're here. I'm here for like everybody. All the work that I do on myself in some way helps everybody else heal,
Yeah.
because I'm one of those like Chiron wounded healer people."
Hmm.
So I'm the wounded healer. Hello, everybody. And I'm here to work on stuff that's like affecting the collective and in my own personal life. And then whatever I'm working on in my own personal life and healing affects everybody. And I'm a messenger, so I write a book about it. And
Yep.
then in reading the book, you can identify with it because you probably had some similar stuff. So the Second Wave book, Love is Fierce book, both of those are really, really great. And some people like my first book called Awakening to Me, where I tell my story before I really woke up
Yeah.
about all the stuff I was doing and experiencing and going through, like sort of my trial of woes, and then how I woke up. It might actually help because it was how I started waking up to my path.
Yes.
So that one's kind of interesting too. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, that was a whole lot, but it's very exciting. It's exciting to me because I didn't have a publisher for this book. It's a second wave. I didn't do advertising. I did a lot of podcasting and talking about it, but
Yeah.
I didn't do I didn't do all the traditional things, and it's like still on the charts. So I think it's because
Yeah.
it's helping people.
Yes. And I think that's right.
You
I
know.
think it's one of those things. I'm sure you are very, very acquainted with this, but it's something I'm only starting to understand. Um, I've noticed how the more so I made a big step personally, I guess about 3 years ago. Yeah, about 3 years ago. I had lost my job. I'd always, worked a job, like, had basically a job in marketing or sales or whatever. And we did my writing on the side. I always had a dream of wanting to be full time, like to be a full time author and all that stuff. But I really thought I could never do it. Well, I ended up losing the job that I had, and it was sort of like I was sort of pushed out of the boat, like, okay. And then the
That
funny thing
happens.
was, the more I started doing it, the more, the more the language I would use is the more it was being blessed, right? The more I did it, the more it was blessed. And what's funny, it was even before I sort of jumped out of the boat, and I was still looking for jobs, interviewing for jobs. It was like I realized, I came to a place where I realized all the effort I'm putting into trying to get a job, sending in my resume, going to interviews, was bearing no fruit at all. Like that well was dry. But all the stuff that I was doing, which is what I really wanted to do, like writing my blog, doing my podcast, interviewing people, working on my books, doing all that stuff. It was every bit of energy I put into that exponentially exploded. And it was like, why don't I just do more of this? Because this seems to be what is flourishing. And this other thing I keep banging my head against the wall isn't working. So maybe I should just take some of that energy and put it over here. And anyway, once I did that, in a way, I was sort of placed in a situation where I kind of had to do that. But then the more I did that, the more that happened, right? And so the principle that I discovered, and it's kind of what you just said. So as part of what I did, I started this online course called Square One. It was to help people, like you're saying, I wanted to help people who had gone through what I'd gone through coming out of toxic religion and figure out their own way to process and navigate the future, like moving on to what we call reconstruction of faith. And without telling them how to do that, because I can't, you know what I mean? Just basically help them figure out how to do that, right? So I started this thing called Square One. And then of course, you have to okay, I created it, I built it, but then I have to attract people. I got to get people to say, hey, come on over here and sign up for this course. And here's the principle that I noticed. Sorry, long way around to get to what you just said that I've realized. As long as I focused on the helping people part of it, in other words, as long as my focus was only on this is something that helps people, I know it's going to heal them, and now I do. I've done that for 3 years, so I know that it's real. But at the time, I just believed it. And but anyway, the more I focused on that, it just was a magnet. People just found me, and then they did go through it, and then they got set free, and they were like, "Wow, this is beautiful and healing, and thank you." Right. And so it probably happened more the second session that we had after that, after the first session, where then I noticed that if my focus was on selling the program, right, which was more about making money for myself, right, and making the program successful, nothing that's when again it started to dry up. That well started to dry up, and that effort was fruitless. But then when I would realize it's a little paradigm shift. But when I paradigm shifted to forget about the money, in fact, I started giving seats away for free because I realized this is going to help people. And I genuinely was excited about it, helping people and healing people. And then the more I focused on just that aspect of it, it was effortless, right? People just flowed in, they found me, they went through it, and they loved it. And so there is something about that, right? About when your focus is on other people, when your focus is on healing other people, you don't have to worry about the other stuff, right? You don't have to focus on, I got to sell more books, I got to sell more seats, I got to promote and market this thing. To me, anyway, in my experience, the more I focused on those things, the less it worked, right? But the more I focused on other people and healing them, and I didn't worry about the other, the more then it was just this effortless process.
Well, I would love to see your human design chart, Keith, because if you have the right angle cross of service like me, well, that definitely is how it works,
Yeah.
The thing is that we're in a collective, I love this quote, and I can't remember who said it, but it was we're in a one room classroom where all grades are represented, So the master teachers are in the classroom along with the kindergartners.
Yes.
And so we're all learning different lessons together. And then we're matched up together to learn these lessons, and we're learning different lessons together.
Yeah.
So mine is about service. My lesson is to be in service. So yes, it works that way for me too. If I start focusing on, and believe me, it's difficult because when you're a full-time healer and teacher, and your whole income comes from teaching,
Yes.
or selling books or people liking what you say, body meditations or buying healings, that your whole income is based on that. So you can start to feel gosh, I got to pay my mortgage this month. But if you focus on that, it dries up.
That's right.
So, but if I focus on I'm doing this in service. This is what I'm here to do. It's
Yes.
going to help a bunch of people. And the same as you, like I find creative ways to work with people because if I know that, like I get a sense, like I'll just feel like somebody needs to be in the program, like this is really going to support them. And right now, maybe they're going through a terrible time and they have no money. And it's like, well, I still feel like this person is to be served by this program.
Yep.
So I just get creative with that person.
Yep.
It's like, well, what do you know how to do?
Yes.
What's your skill set? What do you
Yeah.
want to learn how to do?
Yeah.
And maybe we can work together, find a solution. So I mean, the most important thing, we have to keep an eye on the prize.
Yeah.
And for me, the eye on the prize is that we're all waking up
Yeah.
on the planet at this time. And that's what I'm here for. I'm here for the Great Awakening. I'm here to help people wake up. So, wake up to what? Wake out of the dream. Wake out of the dream that that there's a prescribed path and that you have to do it just this way and then you'll get successful or whatever,
Yeah.
you'll be a
Yeah.
good person. It's like, what if you have an individual path? And this is kind of some of the messages that are in the second wave book I was talking about.
Right.
What I channeled one time, and all of the stuff I channeled through there, a lot of it has to do with hard-won lessons that I experienced personally inside myself, right?
Sure.
And one of those was I was really grappling with all of these questions you're talking about, like how do you know it's the right path, or who do you listen to, or how do I find my way? Like what's my way going to be to express my gifts in the world? What are my gifts? Who's going to care? And who do I listen to? Because I was getting sort of twisted up by having so many different people telling me their opinion on how I could do it, that I was getting lost in all of that and not really knowing like what my truth was. And this is where this work I was doing actually with some coaches, and they're like, well, why don't you sit down and just meditate on that for a little bit while we're here? And so I did. I sat and I really wrestled with it, and everybody else is wrestling with their own thing, and I'm wrestling with this. And all of a sudden this like light bulb went off in my head, and I was like, I looked down at my thumb and I was like, I have a unique thumbprint. Everybody has a unique thumbprint.
Mm-hmm.
That means I'm designed this way.
Yes.
That means this is who I am. And they've proven that nobody has the same thumbprint. So that means I'm unique. So nobody else has my answers.
That's right.
And it was
Only
like
you do.
that.
Yes.
It was just like solved. So that's one of the teachings in the book. And this is how my soul sort of speaks to me, is through these flashes of insight. These it started off that way, like flashes of realization or flashes of insight or visuals or like silly stuff like, look at your thumb. And I was like, I'm looking at my thumb.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Look at my thumb. What is my thumb telling me? And I'm looking at my thumb, and then this insight comes in. That's how it works for me. Now it's like, it's just a stream, it's just like a stream of. So for me, what I've realized working with a lot of people on opening up access to this sort of self-guided system that everybody has, the thumbprint guided system, is that there's a lot of conditioning that blocks the flow of that, because it's trying to keep you, I believe, powerless in a conditioned system where you're kept away from your greatest power, which is your soul, and you're disconnected from that information so that you can be powerless and small and, work and toil lots and lots of hours in a system and sit your butt in a seat and do what you're told. And, kind of conditioned to follow along and conform and do what everybody else tells you to do. Yeah. And it's a really unfulfilling way to live. We all go through a period of it to experience it. But when you finally wake up out of that and you start opening this little doorway, what happens is that your soul starts to talk to you. And when you have your soul, you don't need anything else.
Right.
You got your soul. You don't need the house, the car, the money, all the things that they hook you into the system with. You don't need any of that once you got your soul. Yeah. Thanks. I'm out.
So what I love about what you're saying, and this is some of the overlap and touch points, I think it's coming back to me now when we were talking before on Carl's thing, that to me it's such an amazing epiphany or realization, and especially for somebody when you go through a lot of toxic Christian sort of indoctrination, and it's a kind of a bit of mind control. But when you start to break out of that, because one of the most insidious pieces of that system is that it teaches you to mistrust yourself. The message you're given in evangelical Christianity, and I know because I grew up in this, and I was an ordained pastor, and I went through all this stuff. But the sort of the main little thing that is said to you from a young age is you cannot trust yourself. Your thoughts are evil all the time. The heart is deceptively wicked, and so don't trust yourself. And by the way, don't even trust yourself to hear the voice of the Spirit or God or whatever, Christ. No, because again, your thoughts are wicked, and you could be led astray. So just listen to Pastor Bob. He'll listen to God for you and tell you what God wants to say to you. And like that is the most damaging thing, because once you start mistrusting your own
It's
ability
terrible.
to know and hear the truth, right? So but once you realize, first of all, I'm also somebody that studies like scripture and things. You go and look at these verses that they use to support that stuff. You realize it doesn't say that at all, actually. But it's just like they convince you that it says that, so you go along with it. But once you realize, oh, that's not even what that says. So then there's no power behind that. Then you can like relax and go, no, I can trust myself. So so the nugget, that the powerful thing that I realized, and what you just said, is that the more you learn to trust your own ability to know the truth, what you realize is that truth is not something external to yourself, right? When you were telling that story, that example, right? You're in this place of like, well, what am I going to do with my life? And what should I do? And in a way, what you're saying is, who am I? And then you're asking other people to tell you who you are. You're asking other people external to yourself to have the answer, to give to you because you don't have the answer. When you recognize that truth isn't external to yourself, that those answers that you're looking for are not out there. They're not in other people. They're not in another book. They're not in some other class or webinar or whatever. It's like, it's within you, right? Now, the webinar could tell you that it's in you. Okay. But the point is, you need to really believe that the answer and the truth is within yourself. And so when you get to this place where you get still and you listen and you just, recognize this such a simple truth of, this is who I am, right? Like for myself, to say, I've always loved to write. I am a writer. I've been writing since I was a little kid. I love imagining things. I love writing. I love communicating. I love taking complex ideas and simplifying them so the average person can just go, oh, I get it. I understand that, right? And I love service. Like you said, I love being a servant. I love serving people and helping people and all that. So when you just recognize, this is who I am, and then let me live out of that reality of who I am, who I'm made to be, that truth isn't external to myself. And rather than sort of like, I think we're always looking for the meaning of life, but instead of like trying, as if again, it's something external to us, ourselves, but instead of trying to seek out and find, like it's the holy grail, I have to find this lost treasure of the meaning of life, to really just take a step back and say, what is it that makes my life meaningful? And do that, right? That's what makes life meaningful. Whatever it is that you already know, when you do these things, when you spend your time and energy in these ways, you feel fulfilled, right? You are being who you are. That's what makes your life meaningful. And whatever that is, do that thing, right?
Exactly. And stop being afraid of making a mistake. I think a lot of this culture of fear around trusting yourself also has to do with the mistakes that we make, right?
Yes.
Because we stop trusting ourselves because we're like, how did I make that choice? Or what happened inside of me that I did that thing? And then we try to explain that. And then we find this system that says, oh, well, that's because, you were born a sinner,
Yes. Yes.
and then you can't trust anything you think and do, and da 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 da. And and other religious trainings talk about the egoic self, the Maya,
Yeah.
and so in some ways, so there's just like a misunderstanding in a way. It's like we want to listen to the calm present one within. The calm present one within that we find in stillness
Mm-hmm.
is typically the soul, especially if it's opening you what it's saying. If you feel opening, like, oh, if you feel like you can breathe, if you feel loved and
Uh-huh.
cared about, those are all good signs that you're speaking to your soul.
Yeah.
And if it's something that's like critical, judgmental,
Yeah, condemning.
punitive.
Yeah,
That's usually having to do with what we call in the gene keys the shadow frequency that all humans up until now are confronted with. Why? Because we've been experiencing lower consciousness brains. So we can get a little scientific now. So we have our reptilian brain in our head, which is our basic survival brain, which is the first brain that was formed in human beings, like their predecessors long, long, long ago. It was a reptilian brain. That was the brain that said, okay, don't eat that, you'll die. Or, don't step in front of that or run away from that, it'll kill you, so
right.
things like that. That's life preservation. And so that's our prehistoric brain. Now we have our limbic brain, which is the next brain that has to do with our emotions. Not only our emotions, but the story we tell about whatever's happening. So the limbic brain together with the reptilian brain are what really create the human drama. They
Yeah,
work together in concert and they create the experiences that are happening all over the planet today. And they're the foundation of why we have constructs like punitive dogmatic religions that tell you that you're a bad person. That's all based on those two ancient brains. So when we start to move into the prefrontal cortex, which is a newer brain, we start to access some of the newer ascended frequencies and thought patterns that are available to us and have been available to us ever since we became Homo sapien, which are, the dreaming brain, the inspiration brain, the song and art and creation brain, the right brain that is a feminine energy that flows through. So, but what happens is that energy started coming out, and somewhere along the line, somebody said, that's dangerous,
right.
and said, don't follow that brain because that's going to lead to independence and sovereignty and a whole bunch of stuff that we don't want. And so don't do that. So, but that is the newer brain, and now we're in it, so thousands of years ago, um, you know, Neanderthals, where all there was on the planet, then there was a spontaneous evolution, and this is evolution, so everyone who's like scared of that is going to like
Right.
run away off the podcast right now.
Oh, well.
But this is scientific. This is based on remains and stuff that scientists have found on the earth. So you can hide if you want, but
Right.
here's some truth.
Uh-huh.
So that was a spontaneous evolution is what they're finding. So evolution doesn't happen like in as gradual as we think it does. It happens in like that. So there's a pressure that mounts, there's a pressure, there's a tension, there's energy. You can see this dynamic happening all over the earth, like let's say in the formation of a pearl inside of an oyster shell, or, there's lots of examples of where pressure starts to form something greater than itself. And then there's this spontaneous alchemical change that creates something new, a derivative of the species.
Yeah.
So in this case, out of Neanderthal man came Cro-Magnon. They can stand up. Out of Cro-Magnon came Homo sapien. And we're at the moment of another evolution, which is Homo luminous. And so look at all of the tension on the planet. Look at all of the anger, the hatred, the fear, the judgment, the war, and then look at the way the planet's responding, the fires, the floods, the tempests, So when we see this, like what everyone's calling the end of days, what's it the end of days for? Homo sapiens, because the next thing is Homo luminous. It's not ending the species, it's changing your consciousness. So if you want to stay a Homo sapien and involved in the human drama, you can stay there as long as you want and die, and your genes will just go with the old gene, just like the Neanderthals, and you can just kind of die that way. Or you can open up to Homo luminous and stick around, and in the Homo luminous, what's the difference? What's the big, because we got new brains with all of the other ones. We got new brains with all the other evolutions. This one is changing our DNA. So instead of a two-stranded DNA, we got the God DNA twisting into our triple helix, the Trinity. So if that doesn't resonate with Christians, I don't know what else is gonna. I mean, so Jesus said, you will do that much more than me. You will do what I have done and more. What is he talking about? I'm getting chills all over my body. He is talking about becoming Homo luminous, becoming embodied divinity.
Yeah.
And the truth is, you always have had that capability. It's just that you didn't believe it. And you lacked the DNA to really fully embody that.
Yeah.
But now that's coming into form. It's available. And it's available for everyone on the planet that chooses it. No
Yeah.
one is exempt. There isn't anybody like left behind because they were sinners.
Right.
No, there's only those that are stubborn that want to keep believing their fear-based things that are going to not claim this for themselves, and that's completely their responsibility and not anybody else's.
Right. Right. Exactly. This is so amazing. So
I know, right? That
I've
was
been
a
writing.
channel. Did you feel the energy of that coming in? Like,
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying when I channel it. That's how it comes in. Like, I get God bumps like all over my body, and yeah. So
that's awesome. So there's so many different things that you've touched on that I want to know more about. So well, we've already kind of been touching on some of this, but why else do you think? I mean, what kind of, going back to your book, right? The second wave, like what why is it, do you think, that book has spoken to so many people? Like what, and I'm sure you're getting feedback from people, why is it, do you think, that this book has resonated with so many people? What kind of things, I mean, again, you've already touched on some of those things, but what else, what are some of the other reasons why you think this book has been so impactful?
well, it's truthful, and it also speaks to the experience that many people have had on the planet of realizing this place is weird. Like, I've known my whole life that that's not how you're supposed to treat people.
Yeah.
Why do people treat each other this way?
Yeah.
And why am I being trained to treat other people this way?
Mm-hmm.
And it's something inside of you knew your whole life that wasn't right.
Yeah.
And then you look to these outside systems to explain it, but like most of the people that come to my books are like ready to go into the next initiation of sovereignty. Like, I'm not going to listen to this stuff anymore because it doesn't make sense to me as a person. And I believe in a loving God that loves me, and I believe in a creator that created me on a unique design with a unique thumbprint. And if the creator is all knowing and wise, then how I am is how I'm supposed to be. So if you don't like it, well, that's your problem. But
Right.
this is how I'm designed and how I'm supposed to be. And so you not liking me the way I am and wanting to change me, that's kind of your issue, not mine. And
Mm-hmm.
it takes a lot of us a long time to finally get to that place of realizing that, because we're trying to fit in. Because the biggest painful wound is separation.
Yes.
So a lot of people read this book and they go, my God, that is my painful wound of feeling separate, like I don't belong, like I'm an outcast, like I'm the black sheep of the family, like I'm the scapegoat for everything that's wrong, and I have to change myself to fit into this system that it doesn't feel right to me, and I never knew it was right. And so I explain why it is that maybe you might be feeling that way, which is that you're in touch with your soul at some level. Like, you're in touch with your soul. You might be a star seed. And this is another topic that a lot of people are talking about now out there in the world, because they're waking up and remembering, I'm not even from this dang planet. Like, I just came into this body and I'm dealing with all this human stuff that is so archaic.
Yeah.
And it's like really challenging. So why did you come here? Why are we all in this together? Because, not everybody on the planet resonates with being a starseed, because not everybody is.
Mm.
Some people are like humans that were ancestors on this planet and have been growing humanity. I mean, look at the arc of consciousness.
Yeah.
So we're Neanderthals, and then we get a new brain, and then we're Cro-Magnons, and then we get to do more cool stuff, and then we get Homo sapien, and we get more empathy and all this kind of cool stuff, and then now we get to be Homo luminous. There's an arc
Mm-hmm.
to the development, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, where did that arc start? And this is the question that everybody has. So Jesus comes along, and in the book I talk about this. Is like, there's a lot of light workers on the planet today. Like, there's a lot of heart open people that are here to help, that are practicing consciousness, that are like loving, really practicing this. Love thy neighbor. If your neighbor triggers you, go do your own work on it. Like, process it inside.
Mm-hmm.
Forgive transgresses, or what you think is a transgress, because maybe it's not. It's like, it's that thing, that place of like questioning yourself. Now, questioning yourself is not shutting off the entire intuitive stream.
Mm-hmm.
Questioning yourself is asking good questions, being curious. Why do I perceive this way? What is
Right.
happening for me? And opening it up. And so I often say in the book, there's one part where I say, imagine like a light worker at this time on the planet, stepping onto the planet all the way back there. People would be shocked.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the people that were living at that time were operating from their reptilian brain and their limbic brains, and mostly reptilian, because it was all about survival.
Yeah.
And it was all, I mean, talk about lack of consciousness that wasn't available then,
Yeah.
except for very few people. So these masters like Buddha stood out big time
Right.
because nobody else was doing that.
Right. And it's also the reason why, like because even like Socrates, right, several hundred years before Jesus, talked about how like if a truly enlightened person were to show up, the way we would react is that we would basically kill them. We would crucify them. We would.
And that's what's happened over and over and over and over again through history.
Right. That's right. Because we don't get it. We don't understand it. They seem weird and different. They scare us. They're moving the waters a little bit in ways that make some people uncomfortable, and certainly make people in power uncomfortable, right? Because like the things, man, you just said so many beautiful things right there. Like, because when you're talking about when you're in this place of feeling like you don't belong, you don't fit in, and all that stuff, I was thinking about how like it really isn't it just it's like a shifting in polarity. That's the way I think of it. Like it's still like you're not wrong. I think if someone is in this place with saying, well, I feel so different, I don't fit in, and all that, and so that's sort of a negative way of processing something that is true. But if you flip the polarity from negative to positive, what you realize is the same thing is still true. It's just the way of looking at it is different. You are unique.
Yes.
This is why you don't look like everybody else, because you're not. You're
not meant to be.
Right. And
you're a rainbow sheep.
Yes. So celebrate. You want to celebrate.
Celebrate your rainbow sheepness.
Yes. Yeah. It's not that, oh, I'm broken, I'm screwed up, I'm wrong, I'm messed up, because I don't fall into the little gray people that just kind of march along. Like, no, you don't, because you're not supposed to be. And in fact, all those people shouldn't be either. We all should.
But they just got deceived.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
And the thing is also about it is that a lot of rainbow sheep, if you've gotten to the place where you have the remembrance of who you are, even if you sort of tell yourself that's not true because you want to blend in, you have intense fear of people discovering that you're a rainbow sheep. Now, you've mentioned some reasons why that might be. Because on this planet, we know what happens to rainbow sheep. We know what happens when you show up as the rainbow sheep amongst the gray people who are in conformity. It's like the Matrix.
Yes.
That evil thing can show up in any one of those people because they don't know who they are yet.
Right, and they'll all turn on you.
And they'll just come after you with knives. Talk about all the witch burnings. People throughout history have been attacked for knowing something greater than what the populace, the mainstream, whatever the most of the populace knew it to be true.
Yes.
People have lost their lives because of this. Yeah. Again, it's a regular thing. So the second waivers came in asleep, most of us, because that's a little bit of a protection mechanism, right? You kind of like still know deep inside who you are, but you have enough of a forgetting that you can kind of blend in for a while until you get your feet on the ground.
Yeah.
And then you can get solid enough that you know the lay of the land. Mm-hmm. And you can defend yourself or put yourself in a good position to be safe as the unveiling happens, so that the angry mobs, hopefully we won't have angry mobs this time trying to burn people at the stake. This is like the first time in human history we might have one little opportunity for consciousness to actually raise without the person or the people, the group, collective that is inspiring the consciousness shift being killed.
That's right. Yes.
This might be the first time in human history that we might accomplish this. And that would be the rising of the sixth sun, the age of Aquarius. And I believe we can do it this time. I hope that people's brains overall are able to at least live and let live. If they can't understand what's going on, at least see that there's something here that I just don't understand. That would be a huge, beautiful shift. And I think there's largely that possibility, and I detect that there's just some little pockets of extreme resistance to it that we might get some violence out of, unfortunately. Yeah. And it's the ones that think that they're chosen, ironically.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? Yeah.
And interesting.
And ironically, a lot of them think they're following this Jesus guy.
By a way, I want to speak to that for a second, and just since we're ripping off Band-Aids, I just, I just want to rip another one off. I mean, I've looked at that. Now, I was not programmed by Christianity. My mom was. My grandmother was definitely in a Pentecostal church. Super, super, way out there in West Texas,
Yeah.
And okay, so 5 days a week, the whole thing. And my mom grew up in that. And my mom, from the time she was little, had questions like, well, if all the little children are loved, all the little children, why is there a rainbow bathroom that I can't go in because I'm not colored?
Yeah.
My mom had questions like this because she's immune to this kind of delusion,
Yeah.
and said, I'm out of here. And then when she had me, she said, I'm not programming this child with any kind of religion.
Yeah.
So I was able to I'm a clean slate. Like, I don't have any of that programming. I know my mom does, and she talks about it,
Yeah.
but I don't have any of that. So to me, things are very simple, whereas they're not simple for other people, I notice.
Yes.
But it's very clear and simple to me. And the simple thing I notice when I look at, not all, but some of these churches where there seems to be a lot of like violent tendencies, is that it's the Jesus that they think they're praying to is actually a creation of fear. It's
Yeah.
not Yeshua ben Yosef. It's like
No.
it's an entity creation that got created over decades, years, hundreds,
Mhm.
probably thousands of years of suffering. This sort of entity Jesus that they all pray to got created.
Yeah.
And, and usually he's got long flowing white hair, and because he wasn't white, actually, he was black.
Right.
He had woolly hair, and he had brown skin, black
Yeah.
skin, and that's who he was. So if you're praying to anything other than Yeshua ben Yosef,
Yeah.
you probably might be getting mixed answers about, the
Right.
right course of action.
Yeah, but it isn't even just, I see, to me, part of it, I don't know if you agree with this or not, but see, I think part of the deception for Christians in that sense is that, like Richard Rohr made the observation, and I think he's totally right on this, that that there has been a shift. People have been convinced that what they need to do with Jesus is worship him. Let's sing songs about him. Let's pray to him. So we've deified Jesus to the point where it's more about that than it is about actually listening to what he said, following his teaching, and following the model of life that he gave us, which was to recognize, that like Christ abides in you and you abide in Christ. The kingdom of God isn't over there, over here. It's within you, which
It's
means
inside.
everybody, right? Like,
I am the word.
Yeah. Let's move away from that. Let's not talk about that. Let's not follow Jesus. Let's not read the Sermon on the Mount. No. Let's just worship him and pray to him and sing songs to him for a couple of hours. And we think that when we're doing that, this is the right way to approach it. And this, to me, this is part of the way the deception gets completed.
But there's the reason. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I'm just like, I got to bring in the piece I brought in at the conference.
Yes, go ahead.
Why I believe that happens is because it's super convenient for people.
Yeah.
To avoid their own responsibility.
Yes.
Because why? Because if Jesus is above you and you worship Jesus, and Jesus died on the cross for you, and he took all your pain and suffering away by doing so, then that means he absolves you of the need to do any of your work.
Right.
So, yay, Jesus! Yeah. I'm gonna sing a song to Jesus because Jesus just saved my ass from doing my schoolwork. Like, I just handed my test over to Jesus and said, "Could you please handle this test for me? Because I just can't figure this out myself." And then Jesus says, "Sure, I'll just do that for you. I'll give you all the answers. Here you go." And you said, "Thank you so much."
Yeah. But I still don't know. I don't know anything.
But I don't know anything, and I haven't learned anything. So yeah, exactly. I mean, I think the moment for me growing up, when I realized just how much hypocrisy there was, is I'm watching these movies of like, and I know they're movies and everything, but this is based in some truth. I'm watching like The Godfather and these other movies where like these mobsters are Christians.
Yes.
And go and kill these people, like just ruthlessly.
Yeah. And they go to
church. And then confess it, and they're like, "Okay, well, you're done. Say 3 Hail Marys and you're finished."
Yeah.
Excuse me? That ain't how it works. I'm sorry. Like, that might have been like how it worked up until now. But guess what? The age of Pisces is ending.
Mm-hmm.
Love you, Jesus. Yeshua ben Yosef would never have taught all those things.
No.
Ever, 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 ever.
No.
So this like entity Jesus is done. And the Yeshua ben Yosef has always been around. And those who actually honestly did their work and opened their hearts and humbled themselves and did their work heard his message,
Hmm.
whether you were in a Christian church or not.
Right. Exactly.
I hear his message all the time.
No,
I
exactly.
argue with him. I say, look what you created. I can't stand this. And he says, I didn't create this. That's what they made of it. And it's like,
Uh-huh.
okay, I have these conversations back and forth because it pisses me off. As a person who takes responsibility for her own spiritual path, I get a little irritated when I see people just going and doing Hail Marys. Like, that's not how it works. I'm sorry, it's
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
You got to do your work. So we're heading into the age of Aquarius, and the new teachers are going to make you do your work. So you're not going to have to like hand in your test to somebody else and have them do it. And that's, this is part of the reason why we had so many people flee the planet through COVID.
Uh-huh.
Because they're like, I'm not up for this new curriculum. I'm out. Like, no thanks.
Yeah.
I'm exiting the planet now. I don't want to be part of this.
Mhm.
And that's fine. You don't have to be part of it. But if you stick around, you are. And
Mhm.
you guys all survived COVID, so you're in.
Yeah.
You're in the new curriculum, whether you like it or not. So if it feels harder to you, it is. Because you actually have to do your work.
Uh-huh.
I think the main thing that Jesus unfortunately was used to create, which I don't think that he meant to create, but
No.
what was created through him was a rescuer paradigm.
Yes.
And we're enamored of the rescuer. We love superheroes to come save our
Oh,
asses.
yeah.
And we like to be the rescuer because have
Yeah.
all the answers for everybody else and have
That's
a know-it-all
right.
and tell everybody else what to do because we know better than them because we're
Mhm.
saved and they're not. We have superpowers and they don't.
Right.
That whole paradigm is created so much human drama,
Yes.
and it's called the triangle of disempowerment. Rescuer at the top. If you have a rescuer, guess what you need?
A victim.
Victims.
Yes.
And if you have victims, how do they become victims? Perpetrators.
Yes.
So this whole paradigm is false, and it's not what Yeshua taught.
No.
Okay, he was saying you are sovereign.
Yeah.
The kingdom of God lives within you.
Mhm.
You are also sovereign. As
Mhm.
I have done, you will do that and more.
Mhm.
I am not greater than you. We are the same.
Yes.
You are my brother. You are my sister.
Yes.
We are equal. We are children of God. We are the same.
Mhm.
Don't elevate me above. Walk with me side by side. I'm walking with you. I'm holding your hand.
Yes.
That's a very different conversation than I'm going to rescue your ass so you don't have to do any work.
That's right. Yep. That's exactly
We
right.
created this mess on earth, and guess what? We get to clean it up.
Right. Yeah. Well, what makes me, that's why I am so excited about within Christianity, there has been this uh movement. I consider it a movement of the spirit. I really, because I feel like it is a spontaneous thing. Um the more I hear people's stories that basically they're waking up, they're recognizing the incongruities between this Jesus guy was this way and this thing that's got his name on it has nothing to do with that. It's completely different. So they're being pulled out of it. They're waking up to it. They're rejecting all this sort of toxic stuff that's all about fear and shame and guilt. Like that, those are the main things. Like and how you know it is like not only when you're in it, you recognize, oh yeah, it's either about fear or shame or guilt or some combination of those things. And then the more you start questioning those things and you start moving out of it, guess what? Those are the three things that the people who are still in it will come at you with: fear and shame and guilt, right? Because that's the only thing they have. That's all they got. The only power they have over you is fear and shame and guilt. But the more you reject those things and those don't have power over you, and then you're free to believe and think for yourself, and the more you move out of that, that's where a lot of people find themselves right now. This is where I'm at right now. And I think it's such a good thing because once you're not controlled by fear or shame or guilt, when you do, like you said, believe and realize that God is love, that the kingdom is within you, that you have the same ability that Jesus did to connect with the Father, to speak to God, to hear from God, to know for yourself your path, your truth, your identity, all those things. Again, like you said, it's opening you up to something, right?
And you get to also connect with the mother. I want to put that in there.
Yeah.
And she loves you too, by the way.
Right. Yes.
And that's why she gives you fruits and vegetables and wood to make houses and shelter. That's why she gives you everything, including fresh water, to have this earth experience,
Yeah.
right? The
Yeah.
mother is the physical in this way, like she's giving us Mother Earth. How do we know that it's called Mother Earth? Because she's our mother.
Yes.
We're made of her just as
Yes.
much as we're made of the spirit.
Yes.
So there's this big, that's why I wrote the book Healing the Mother Wound, because a lot of these wounds come from this false conditioning and programming. And, people are afraid to go out in the woods. I had a friend, like, he was a perfectly decent, heart open human being, like, light worker, beautiful friend, brought people together from his beautiful light. I mean, his light was amazing when he meditated, his heart just way open. And then he picked up a Bible
Mm, sorry.
and he turned.
Yeah.
And then he told me, "Oh, well, I can't do these things with you anymore because I don't, it's evil." I was like, "A rock is evil?
Right.
A animal is evil? A tree? That means you're evil because you're in a body. That's evil? What?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not evil. That
And it
is
goes,
your mother."
yeah. And again, it's mind control. It's
It's so
brainwashing. Like,
crazy.
he knows for a fact when he was in it, he experienced for himself intuitively that it was good and right and beautiful and healing and all that. And then someone convinced him, oh no, this is bad. This is evil. And
And I think
now,
there's actually codes in that text. I mean, some of these texts, I wonder if there's like some kind of like mind control, energetic programming that's like actually built into the
yeah,
text itself,
yeah,
because he turned it, like it was the craziest thing. And he did tell me that as he was reading the book, this is coming from somebody who was a light worker, very open, very perceptive, very heart open. He starts reading this book and he's like, there's like glyphs in here and all kinds of sacred geometries and there's these things and it's like affecting me. And I was like,
yeah,
what is in that book? I'm not opening it. No
yeah,
thanks.
yeah.
Not interested.
Yeah. Well, no, here's the other thing about that, specifically about the book. People that follow me know what I'm going to say. But the more, see, because that's what I came out of, right? So when I started going back and looking, like I said, people will give you this verse to convince you of this. And again, it's all fear and shame and guilt. And they say, well, the Bible says this, the Bible says that. Well, then when I've gone to look at some of these specific verses that supposedly teach these things, what I saw that really disturbed me was your English translation, right? So this is the problem, right? You grab your Bible, your English translation, and you open it up and you flip over and you find that verse and you read it. There it is. It's right there in English. It says right here, ba 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 ba. But what you don't know is that you go back to the older translations that we have, like the original Hebrew and Greek, and you go and look at what it said, what it really says, like what it said when Jesus was alive, like the Bible he would have been reading. It doesn't say that. Like literally, words have been changed in the English Bible. They've either been words have been added in, words have been changed, words have been taken out for the purpose. I mean, when you look across the board, usually those kinds of shifts and changes that have been made, they're intentional, they're not accidental. I refuse to believe they're accidents, okay? Because when you see the overall effect of those changes, well, what are those verses saying? What are they about? Who are they directed at? Well, usually they're directed at keeping women subjugated and increasing the patriarchy and that patriarchal system. Like, for example, the word homosexual never appeared in any English translation until 1946. Go look at any Greek translation, even the original King James. I'm not a big King James guy, but at least the 1611 translation, when you look at those verses that in today's English translations, the word homosexual is there. Go back to the 1611, the word isn't there because it didn't exist. Someone stuck it in 1947. When you see those kinds of things, there's also places where pivotal texts where, again, in the Greek, there's a word there, but when you read it in the modern English translations, they took it out, right? And so when you can see that somebody is intentionally creating a Bible that just ramps up the judgment against women and against people that are gay, that increases the level of fear and shame and guilt. Again, it's those three things. This is why I can totally believe that, yes, the Bible, the scriptures have been weaponized, right? And yes, you can just read the Bible and you'll pick up on that. But then when you add to that the other layer of the songs that we sing, because again, those are horrible too. And when you add that again, like someone from the pulpit in a place of authority, you have this placebo effect, right? That person is in a place of spiritual authority. They're telling me that if I do this, God will do that. This is the experience. Well, guess what? Then you experience it because they told you were supposed to, right? There's all these, it's like levels of hypnosis. That's what I'm currently doing right now is I'm studying hypnosis, hypnotherapy, hypnosis techniques. And then I'm noticing how, and I'm following a lot of other people who've also already noticed this. They've already connected these dots of how hypnotic control language is used in church services and worship services and things like this for the purpose. Like there is an intention. It's not accidental. It's very purposeful. And then when you can see that, it's like, ugh, oh my gosh, people need to wake up and get out of this stuff.
Yeah, and what's really hard, Keith, and because people are in such a trance that they don't even see how awful certain things are. And I'm gonna just share like a visual from something I saw, because I don't have this programming, right? Just remember, I don't have it. So like to me, it's like flagrantly, like I'm like, I can't believe you people are okay with this. So I'm gonna give you the example. So we have now discovered that, you know, in the recent last year or two, that how many hundreds of little children of First Nations people were taken from their homes, brutally murdered, and put into mass graves at these schools where they were supposed to be being taught. By Christian.
Over 1,000, I think, in Canada.
Yeah. So all of these little children taken from their families, they didn't where these children went. They find out they were killed and put into these mass graves by Christians, good Christians. Okay. Who report to the Pope. Okay. So I watched this little video and I was ready to come out of my chair, reach across the screen, grab him by his scruffy little skinny neck and bitch slap him. That's how I feel. Here he is pompously in his king attire. Right? Sitting atop his golden throne as the Holy One. Pompously sitting there while these people are coming from the tribes, the First Nations tribes, where their children have been taken from them. And years later, they find out murdered in mass graves without any information, just heartless. And they're coming like in grief, like, how could this happen? And does he come down off his high horse? No. You can kiss my ring. Excuse me? I can kiss. How about you kiss my foot as I kick it up your face?
Exactly.
That is wrong. That is so wrong. And I cannot, there's just, to me, how in the world can people look at that scenario and think that that is okay? This is the epitome, like that was a representation, like just a snapshot of what's been happening on this planet for hundreds and hundreds of years, where indigenous peoples, people that lived on their land, people that lived with Mother Nature, lived on their land, had these European colonizers who were white come in with Christian faith, right? And colonize everybody, not only to take away all their land.
But at the end of the sword.
But to kill them at their sword, to force them to give up their eons of belief systems, even to take their land away as in the Trail of Tears. And relocate them.
Well, they take away their culture, they cut their hair, they change their name. The whole reason of taking those kids away from their parents off somewhere else was so that they could
indoctrinate them,
brainwash them, and colonize them completely. And the ones that died are probably the ones that just resisted and said, no, I don't want to play along. You're like, okay, well, we'll fix that. You know,
I mean, but then we're good Christians.
Well, like what he says is, all he says is, I'm sorry. Please forgive us. Like again, you're going back to that thing about Ali oxen free. Oh yeah, Jesus just free. Like, go to confession, blah, blah, blah. Say 3 Hail Marys. Oh, there you go. Everything's good now. We're
it's all good now, right? And the indigenous people, they don't have that philosophy. They're like, no, it's actually not okay because there's no true reciprocity here. There's no, you're not helping. You're not really making restitution. And so when we start to bring up that about slavery, boy, they really get mad, right? Because they're like, when are these black people going to stop being upset? It's like, I don't know, when? I could go on. I mean, Keith, my mind is blown by so many things. Like my mind is blown why black people even practice Christianity. I don't understand it. I don't I don't understand it. It's a big
And many
question
of
for
them,
me.
yeah, and many of them have, especially in the South, many of these Black people who are, again, just indoctrinated into this Christianity, which is so oppressive and oppressed them from the beginning, um, have like a white Jesus, like a painting of white Jesus in their church. Like,
Why is there white
what?
Jesus?
Why?
I
I
mean,
don't
it would be more
understand.
authentic. Like if they want to practice it because they feel
Sure,
moved by Yeshua ben Yosef,
sure,
who, and then put a woolly haired black man up there, please, because
yes,
that's the truth. If
right,
you want to practice Jesus's teaching, Yeshua ben Yosef,
yeah,
put that man in his authentic skin, put a rendition of him with his woolly hair, then I can understand it. Then I
hmm,
can be like, okay, I understand now.
right,
But otherwise, you're just giving into this caste system. And Isabel Wilkerson did a great job in capturing all the history of, this colonization and this white patriarchal system and the color ladder that is still present today and
yeah,
governing the whole world. And that's all factoring into this Christian conversation. So, if you really want to know the truth about all of this stuff, that's a great book to kind of put into the mix. Anyway, so yeah, I know we got to wrap it up, but
yeah,
Keith, I'm a bystander. I'm a witness, and I'm so shocked. I don't know what to say.
yeah.
I mean, honestly, the whole thing is a mess. It's the biggest mess I've ever seen,
Yeah, it's a big mess.
and I don't know how it's all going to get untangled, but I think it's going to happen through honest conversation and
Yeah,
opening your heart and putting yourself in someone else's shoes and seeing it from their perspective.
yeah,
And coming down off the high horse, like, let's just, if I could just, I so would love to just take that high horse way. No more
yeah,
thrones. Like,
yeah.
come on, let's be done with thrones.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think, well, here's the thing. Again, I'm frustrated too. I get frustrated with all that stuff as well. But at the same time, what gives me hope is that I do see people are come one at a time. It's not a massive flood, but it's happening. People are waking up. They're coming out of it. They're getting out of those things. And it reminds me too. I just real quick want to ask, like I'm very fascinated, by the way. So I want you to send me information on some of these things you touched on, like gene keys and human design, all that stuff. Um, but it sounds similar to me and I'm just curious here at the end here if you would see a connection between like spiral dynamics. Do you know what spiral dynamics is?
Well, I know the spiral of spiritual evolution, but I don't know what you're talking about in terms of
Oh,
spiral
well, oh, hey,
dynamics.
there you go. Then I
Is
can
that
show
the
you
same thing?
something. I can show
Oh,
you
okay,
something.
great.
Okay.
Show me.
So I don't have it in front of me, but you can look it up. I just encourage you go. You can go on YouTube even and find there's several really good clips where someone will explain spiral dynamics. And spiral dynamics is basically just mapping the evolution of human consciousness. And it's you can trace it throughout history, but you can also trace it like today. You could trace it in individuals. So some people might be they're color coded, right? So like the lower levels might be like I don't remember the colors, right? Like red or orange or something, and they're more like tribal, us and them, right and wrong,
Yes.
good and
Hmm.
bad. But then but people go through these different layers of consciousness through spiral dynamics. And again, it's more of a natural thing. A lot of it depends on your environment. It depends on how you grow and how you learn, what you're exposed to, and those kinds of things. But then you reach these higher levels of spiral dynamics, and I think this is why you should look at it, because I think you would see a really fascinating overlap. When one of because a lot of the stuff you were saying, I kept thinking, oh, this sounds like spiral dynamics. So yeah, you should check out spiral dynamics because it's showing that it's real, that how we are now living in a place where, and I think this is again, you're talking about how this age is over and the next age is beginning, and we're reaching human, luminous, not human sapien, Homo sapien or Homo luminous. I think it aligns perfectly with this idea of spiral dynamics, because what it does at the highest levels of it, you start recognizing that there is no us and them, there's just us, that we're all connected, that there is this shared consciousness, there is this shared mutuality, beneficial, when I help you, I help myself. When I serve you, I serve myself. Right? All these kind of things, and it's just really interesting. I think we are living in a wonderful time, believe it or not. I mean, I think we're living on the bleeding edge. What
It's
we're seeing
intense.
is we're seeing all the bad, right? And yes, the bad is bad, but at the same time, we can see the sort of the connecting point between where people are coming out of that and shifting into the positive thing. And so I want to focus on the positive things. Like I had a vision years ago of something that I really genuinely believe was God speaking to me about something. It was in the context of focusing on sort of like dying to myself. You know what I mean? This sort of like very negative image of stuff. And but it is something that Jesus said. But the thing is, I think again, I had to shift from the wrong way of looking at it to the better way of looking at it. And so with the way I was looking at it, the way I was thinking of this sort of dying to self was like I needed to crucify myself. I needed to die to myself. Like my focus was doing this. And it was like the realization of like, Jesus didn't even crucify himself. So what are you doing? Why are you doing this? And so anyway, the dream that I had was a burning stick. It was a stick. It was on fire. I was holding this stick and it was burning. And then what I heard was focus on the flame, not the burning stick. And I woke up and I was like, what the hell does that mean? But what I think it meant was it was like the flame is the transition, the transformation part, right? This is like the spirit that is already at work. It's doing the thing, right? It's transferring the matter into energy of the stick, right? When I'm focused on dying to myself, like I'm trying to focus on the stick, which isn't doing anything. It's the instead focus on the flame, which is experiencing the transformation, right? Going into the thing of like, no, if the old has gone, if the new has come, then don't focus on the old. What are you doing, right? Focus on the new, focus on the new thing that's happening, the transformation that's already inevitably taking place. And once I made that shift into what is the spirit already doing? What are the things that are already happening? That's what you're doing, right? That's what I'm trying to do, is to help people move away from what's old and dead and dying into what's new and
Well,
what is life right now.
what's old and dead and dying is mulch. I
Yeah.
mean, Mother Earth always tells me that's mulch, Kerri.
Yeah.
Because I'll say this is a whole pile of, SHID.
Yeah.
I'll like really, really mad. I'll be like, and she'll be like, no, it's mulch. It's really great mulch. They're
Yeah.
learning. Let's celebrate that.
There you go.
And I'm like, okay, so you want me to celebrate? Because I'll be like mad and I'll be like at the Pope with the thing and I'll be
Yeah.
like, what the heck? And she's like, celebrate that. It's exposed.
Right.
We're
There you go.
false.
It's on
People are
television.
seeing it's
Everybody
false
sees
now.
it. Yeah.
They're seeing through new eyes. They're exposing that as false.
Yeah.
Many other cases and things that have happened over the last 3 years where I was also like,
Right.
and she's like, celebrate that. It's being exposed. They're finally seeing it's false. This is beautiful. And that's going to turn into mulch. And so when we come to this new understanding that you're talking about, and I love that you, in the first part of the call, you said, that you opened up and you just noticed that this thing was dried up and this thing was flourishing.
Yeah.
That's the mystery.
Yeah.
That's it. It's a recognition. It's just a noticing the signs. It's noticing what's alive, noticing what's dead. That's all it is noticing what's alive, noticing what's dead, following what's alive, releasing what's dead to the fire or transmuting or in the earth or whatever you want to use to transmute that energy, and just releasing it as not you anymore. How else are we going to ascend our consciousness if we can't let go? And that's what I was talking about in the beginning, where I was saying, like, some people won't take this because they'll be like so entrenched in their position that they can't like let go, because they really are convinced that there's like this hell on the other side and all this kind of stuff. And it's, dude, the hell is holding on.
Right.
The hell is you creating hell by refusing to grow.
Right.
That is hell on earth, when you refuse to grow, because Mother Earth is a tough teacher. She'll kick your ass.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's a good idea. I think you should learn your lessons personally.
Right. Right.
That's my advice.
Yeah. And then the other thing too about like what you just said is like, if someone is in that place where they're holding on to all that stuff, at least in my experience, like, don't waste your time trying to change their mind about it, right? But the point is, there are people who are already waking up, who are already moving away from it, who already can see, hey, that's dead and that's dying. Good. Those are the people I want to talk to. I don't want to waste my time trying to convince people who aren't, who are still focused on this other thing. One day, I hope they're gonna on their own reach a place of going, hey, this isn't good. This is death. This is, oh, look over here. This is life. Okay.
Everyone has their own choice. And so just like we don't, as we get in, so this is one last thing I just want to say.
Sure.
As, people coming off the Christian path, you're going to get so excited about your new discoveries. So excited, like free, liberation. Oh my gosh, this is a whole nother world, like upside down world turns right side up and you go, wow, wow. And then what do you want to do? Share it with everybody that
Right,
you
right.
know and try to help them get like what you're getting.
Yeah,
Mistake.
right. Because most of them are not going to like it. They're not going to understand it,
It's
and they're
not,
going to judge you for that.
yeah, and it's everybody's choice. Just like it's your choice to walk away, just like it's your choice to die, just like it's your choice to open up to something new. It's your choice to trust. You get to choose,
Yeah,
and that's the beauty of it. So let everybody choose, and if you follow your heart, then you'll be excited and happy, and pretty soon people follow excited and happy. They
yeah,
go, wow, you're really into what you're doing. Wow, Keith, I like your podcast. Wow. And they like the energy of it because you're excited about what you're talking about. Even if, as in this podcast, we talked about tough stuff,
yeah,
that can actually be extremely fulfilling when you haven't been allowed to talk about stuff for so long.
yes,
That's
yes,
like so fulfilling to get it out all on the table and like see what's there, right?
yeah,
So yeah, just there's a great metaphor one some of my teachers gave me as a really good, really good analogy. If you're driving on a freeway and you're in your car, you want to stay in your own lane.
yeah, yeah,
That's the easiest way. Just think about it. I'm staying in my own lane because if I start swerving into somebody else's lane, they get mad. They honk. They get pissed off. They try to
right,
run me off the road. So
right.
just stay in your own lane.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. This has been so great, Kerri. I knew it would be, but I had a lot of fun.
Awesome.
This was really great. We touched on so many beautiful things. But yeah, thank you so much for taking time. Congratulations on the success of your book. And I hope many more people discover it and find freedom and hope in life and all that stuff. That's really good.
Blessings to everybody who listened and got this far.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Thank you so much, Kerri.
Bye.
All right, bye.